And I love exploring that. But really, Oprah and what else is what will wake a large majority of people up to even notice that a book exists. Because I think people or publishers are having trouble. Like, how do you even move books?
Yeah.
How do you sell them? I know people have books out there incredible. They're not selling. I don't know. So I wouldn't have a problem. And the other cool thing is, once you write something, it's not yours anymore. I poured my heart and soul and like blood, everything onto the page. But once they send it to the printer, I did as much as I could do. I or I ran out of time in this because I could have kept working on it for years. I like deadlines for that reason. Then it becomes its own thing. And, I'm actually really happy I had that first book because I got kind of ripped on it by some people. And I think it had an effect, it hurt. It hurt. I wasn't prepared. Now I understand better because I kind of got my, a baptism by fire with that one, that it's no longer mine. It's an offering, and people are going to interpret it totally different ways. I mean, I saw people reading, what was that horrible? It's like a Mad Lib, Bridges of Madison County. I mean, it was a piece of shit, okay? And I got into fights with friends of mine who were like English lit majors at Yale, defending it, and I could tell that they were just projecting their own emotional morass and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, look at the pay, Emperor's New Clothes. It didn't matter. They were just, so who knows, what people are going to think, feel, how they're going to respond. It's not my business anymore. So if Oprah likes it, good for her. Spreads the word.
Why did you tell the story in your book, Go West? Why did you keep switching voices between first person and, I think, third person?
Yeah, but actually I used all three.
Okay.
Yeah. Fantastic question. Sometimes you do something instinctively, organically, and then you look back, you're like, whoa, a therapist would have a field day with that one. I think that if you come from a background of trauma, which I never really wanted to acknowledge, but that's one of the reasons that writing the memoir has been useful. I flayed my own addiction and psyche in search of some answers to give to other people and to kind of show that process that I didn't know what was going to happen as I was writing it. But part of it had to do with, let's see if I can keep my train of thought, realizing that childhood trauma was just like that anchor, was fueling this addiction to some degree. I don't want to get too abstract, but I've certainly been like inhaling all these theories about addiction. I'm reading a book right now, Addiction is Attachment Disorder. I mean, my parents were not, bless them, they weren't really present or capable of giving that really crucial early infant attachment thing. And if you don't get that, it does something funky to your brain. It doesn't develop right. Seriously. And I fought it for years. I'm like, I'm fine. Everything's fine. But it's like remedial. There were like ruts in my brain that the other people, when they fall in love, and I'm not saying that what I was doing for years was love, but it's certainly what our culture identifies as love in a lot of ways. When I would get that high, from meeting someone and thinking I was falling in love, that brought me up to normal. Because probably there's just like a depressive, alienated, ongoing state of being. Now, the cool thing is you can actually rejigger your brain. You can create new grooves and new synapses. I don't know all the technical, but it's pretty exciting because I can feel it. For me, that was one reason I did the 2.5 years of basically straight up abstinence without deciding. It was like I needed that to detox for myself. So, where was I? My God. Speaking of convolutions, so the trauma, okay, back to the first, second, and third person. I didn't realize how traumatized I'd been by certain things in my past. I don't know if you want me to talk. I don't know how much to blow.
Talk about whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, there were, my mother committed suicide when I was 14. She was troubled. I was living in foster families, had a lot of rejection. It was challenging. It was a challenging childhood. I was very adaptable, and always had friends and support, but I think those things will, especially if you go back to the original attachment, what are you going to do? One of the things, the only things that fixes that is intimacy, is authentic intimacy. But you have to have an awareness of what you're even starting with. So I think what happens when you have that kind of trauma is you fragment. And the first, second, and third person was kind of an illustration. It was unconscious, but it felt right. I would break into different pieces. I wasn't integrated, and I'm just in the process now. And part of that is knitting things together through awareness, acknowledging even that there was trauma. That's fueling a lot of these desperate needs to hook into these stories with other people that are, recreating trauma. I think you could see that from the memoir. Does that answer your question at all?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Because I know I got busted for that, but it felt very right to me that there was that fracturing of identity. And I think it happens a lot to people in their 20s. But this was, I didn't realize, much more severe.
Do you think you're capable of a lifelong monogamous relationship?
I would like to think so. I don't have, everyone's got different brands of how their addiction manifests because of their backgrounds. I've never been one of those who cheats. I get I think because I read so many fairy tales as a kid too, it was and my mother, I have this in the book, my mother, that line, my mother cried over all the men in her life. She was, loyal, faithful, even though it was whatever kind of love, it was desperate and sad. But I modeled on that kind of thing, and then reading fairy tales where you were wait for decades or hundreds of years, which is also cultural too. So the monogamous thing, yeah. But again, one of the things, I'm still in the process of pulling all this apart. I think I want all these things. I certainly have always felt an urge to forge my own family because I didn't come from that. And I think as a culture, we seem to have some issues with that too, no? I mean, there's so much, the family's kind of exploded, and community, where do you get community? I think it's one reason that 12-step programs are so healing, or can be, because of course they're not the be-all, end-all. They're not going to work for everyone. You need therapy in addition, probably. Some people need rehab. I don't know. I've never done rehab, so I don't know. And I know some of them seem problematic, where it's you're getting spas and riding horses all day. I don't know how helpful that can be, but that's not my style. But I keep losing my train of thought. So back to the partnership. I think part of it is about, I have always thought I wanted that, but I don't know. Because I certainly have said that, and yet I've chosen over and over people who were never going to be capable of that. So let's see how I do now.
If a genie said, I'll give you a lifelong, stable, healthy, happy relationship, marriage, and children, but you have to become Mormon.
No. Yeah, no. I was going to say yes, and as soon as you said Mormon, no. Just instinct. No, absolutely not.
Okay, what if the genie said you had to become Orthodox Jewish?
No.
Not even for a happy, healthy family?
That can't be the reason. Because that can't be the reason.
No, it's not the reason, but it's a condition.
Well, but if it's a condition, then it's not something that as I understand it, to embrace something, because I do have some, interaction with Orthodox Judaism and Mormonism and institutional religion, and in my family, it was always an excuse to shut people out. So I'm not really enamored of the examples I've seen of it. And then down in Alabama, people were using, fundamentalist Christian ethos to kind of shut people down. And so if I'm not shutting out those things as possibilities, but they would have to come from inside, that's all. So that wasn't the way you phrased it.
Yeah, I'm just tossing it out.
Yeah. If I really felt it, and if there was someone, I would consider all those things. But But it, it has to be something that's coming from